The real reason. Joe Pesci vanished from Hollywood. It's hard to forget Joe Pesci, not because of his height or his rapid-fire delivery or even that infamous temper, though all of those helped cement his legacy. No, you remember Joe Pesci because he was unlike anyone else in the Hollywood machine. One moment, he's a New Jersey kid strumming guitar strings, dreaming of nightclub spotlights. The next, he's locking horns with De Niro, stealing scenes in Scorseses' blood-soaked epics, and carving out a persona that's as volatile as it is magnetic. Then, poof, he walked away. Why would an actor at the peak of his powers, with Oscars on his shelf and directors clamoring for his time, simply disappear? To understand that, you need to start from the beginning. A boy from Belleville. Joe Pesci was born in Newark, New Jersey in 1943, a working-class kid with Italian roots stretching back to Aquilonia and Turin. His mother, Maria, was a barber. His father, Angelo, juggled jobs between bartending and forklift driving. They weren't showbiz royalty. They were the kind of people who valued hard work, loyalty, and getting by. Pesci, however, was always something else. By 5, he was already performing in plays in New York. At 10, he was a regular on Startime Kids, a local variety show featuring young talents, one of whom happened to be a young Connie Francis. Even then, his charisma was impossible to miss. While other kids daydreamed about baseball or bicycles, Joe was already singing, dancing, and chasing the spotlight. But it wasn't just acting that called to him. Rock and roll and the Four Seasons Pesci's roots in music ran just as deep. He was close with Tommy DeVito, the guitarist who would go on to co-found the Four Seasons. Through Pesci's introductions, most notably between DeVito, Frankie Valli, and keyboardist Bob Gaudio, one of America's most iconic bands was born. Yes, Joe Pesci may not have been in the Four Seasons, but without him, they might never have existed. The connection wasn't just professional, it was personal. When DeVito hit a rough patch in the 70s, long after his music fame had faded, it was Joe who quietly slipped him a paycheck. Later, when Pesci became a film star, he gave his old friend bit parts in his movies. Loyalty wasn't just a line in a script for Pesci. It was how he lived. Still, not all of his associations were so wholesome. Among his childhood friends was Robert Bobby Bucciarelli, better known in certain circles as a mafia associate. Pesci grew up in a world where neighborhood kids grew into wise guys, singers, or both. Finding his voice, literally. In the 1960s, Pesci followed in his mother's footsteps and became a barber, but the music never let go. He played guitar with Joey D and the Starlighters, the same band that popularized the Peppermint Twist, a dance craze that swept the nation. Pesci wasn't just strumming in the background, he was living the era, fueling its sound. In 1968, he released his own album under the stage name Joe Ritchie, titled Little Joe Sure Can Sing. It was equal parts charm and chutzpah, a crooner with street cred trying to make his mark. But fame wasn't easy to find. Hollywood didn't come knocking, at least not yet. From comedy clubs to cinematic glory, the relentless ascent of Joe Pesci. Before Joe Pesci became a household name, the fiery spark in Scorseses' masterpieces, the pint-sized powerhouse who could steal a scene with a glare, he was simply a guy chasing laughs and living out of his guitar case. In the early 1970s, Pesci teamed up with fellow Italian-American and future Goodfellas co-star Frank Vincent. Together they formed a gritty, rapid-fire comedy duo, Vincent and Pesci, that played like a streetwise spin on Abbott and Costello, peppered with the biting edge of Don Rickles. Their act, a blend of vaudeville banter and insult comedy, found a loyal following across clubs and small theaters. They even hit Broadway in 1975 with a revue called The New Vaudevillians. It lasted just 1 week, but the friendship and their hunger for the spotlight endured. A year later, in 1976, Pesci landed a low-budget crime film called The Death Collector. Shot on a shoestring budget, The movie might have faded into obscurity, except for one fateful twist. Robert De Niro saw it, and he liked what he saw. At the time, Pesci had returned to his roots, working behind the counter at a Bronx restaurant called Amici's. It was honest work, close to home, but far from the dreams he'd once harbored as a kid on StarTime Kids. Then the phone rang. On the other end, Martin Scorsese and Robert De Niro. "We want you in Raging Bull." That call launched a cinematic rebirth. In the 1980s Raging Bull, Pesci played Joey LaMotta, the tough, loyal, volatile brother of real-life boxer Jake LaMotta. It was a role that demanded both ferocity and tenderness, and Pesci delivered in spades. He even broke a rib during filming. But it paid off. He won the BAFTA for Most Promising Newcomer and earned his first Academy Award nomination. Hollywood finally took notice. Over the next few years, Pesci became a go-to for directors seeking authenticity and edge. In 1984, he reunited with De Niro for Once Upon a Time in America, Sergio Leone's sprawling gangster epic. As always, Pesci brought an unmistakable rawness to the screen. His characters weren't caricatures. They were real, breathing men forged by tough streets and tougher choices. Though he dabbled in television, Half Nelson, where he played a bumbling detective, his true home remained on the silver screen. Moonwalking with Michael Jackson. By 1988, Pesci had become one of the most unpredictable and bankable talents in Hollywood. So naturally, he did something unexpected. He played the villain in Michael Jackson's surreal musical movie Moonwalker. As Frankie Mr. Big Ladeo, Pesci chewed scenery with gleeful menace. It was campy, bizarre, and unforgettable, a testament to Pesci's willingness to take risks and defy expectations. By the end of the 80s, Joe Pesci wasn't just another character actor. He was the guy directors called when they needed someone who could be terrifying one minute and hilarious the next. The kid from Belleville, New Jersey had arrived, but his biggest roles and his sudden disappearance were still just ahead. From mobster mayhem to courtroom comedy, Joe Pesci's unstoppable run. Joe Pesci didn't just enter the 1990s, he blew the doors off. After years of carving a niche as Hollywood's go-to tough guy, Pesci took a sharp comedic detour in 1989 with Lethal Weapon 2. As Leo Getz, the motor-mouthed, neurotic sidekick to Mel Gibson and Danny Glover's hard-boiled detectives, Pesci delivered a masterclass in scene stealing. Every time he showed up, the energy shifted. Audiences couldn't get enough. Leo Getz was fast-talking, irritating, hilarious, and oddly lovable. The character became so iconic that he returned in 2 more Lethal Weapon sequels, cementing Pesci's status as more than just a dramatic powerhouse. He could flat-out own comedy. But comedy would soon make way for something legendary. In 1990, Pesci reunited with his cinematic soulmates, Martin Scorsese and Robert De Niro, for what would become the crown jewel of mob movies, Goodfellas. As Tommy DeVito, a hair-trigger gangster with a penchant for violence and no off switch, Pesci delivered one of the most unforgettable performances in film history. His portrayal was electric, funny, terrifying, and brutally real. The character, inspired by the real-life Tommy DeSimone, was brought to life through Pesci's sheer instinct and intensity. Ironically, the name Tommy DeVito was also that of Pesci's childhood friend, the famed musician from the Four Seasons. But the connection, producers insist, was purely coincidental. In one of Goodfellas' most shocking scenes, Pesci's Tommy erupts in deadly rage and murders Billy Batts, played by none other than Frank Vincent, his old stage partner. The chilling moment where Tommy snarls, "Now go home and get your fucking shine box," became a cultural touchstone, quoted endlessly in pop culture. And it wasn't just good acting, it was real. Scorsese encouraged improvisation during rehearsals, recording the unscripted dialogue and building entire scenes around the best lines. That iconic funny how scene? Inspired by Pesci's own real-life experience working as a waiter when a mobster took offense to being called funny. The danger was real, and so was the authenticity Pesci brought to the role. The Academy took notice. At the 1991 Oscars, Pesci won Best Supporting Actor, and true to form, kept it short and raw. "It's my privilege. Thank you." He walked off in under 5 seconds, delivering the shortest acceptance speech in Oscar history. No frills, no tears, just pure Joe, switching gears from crime boss to cartoonish burglar. By this point, Pesci could have stuck with gangster roles and stayed comfortable, but he didn't. Instead, he flipped the script, literally, and became the bumbling burglar Harry in the holiday mega-hit Home Alone, 1990, and its sequel. Alongside Daniel Stern, Pesci embraced slapstick chaos, yelling in near-nonsense gibberish that channeled Yosemite Sam on a caffeine binge. Kids adored him. Parents were stunned. This was the same guy who just shot someone for shining shoes. In 1991, Pesci reminded everyone of his dramatic range, disappearing into the role of David Ferry in Oliver Stone's political thriller JFK. Gaunt, paranoid, and unsettling, his portrayal of the suspected Kennedy assassination conspirator was haunting, proving Pesci could swing from family-friendly antics to chilling realism with seamless precision. And then came My Cousin Vinny, 1992, a courtroom comedy that turned out to be one of his most beloved films. As Vincent Gambini, a fast-talking Brooklyn lawyer out of his depth in rural Alabama, Pesci delivered razor-sharp comedy while anchoring a surprisingly smart legal narrative. Paired with Marisa Tomei, who won an Oscar for her role, the film became an instant classic. Pesci wasn't just playing to laughs. He was the laughs, fusing charm and grit with unmatched timing. By the early 90s, Joe Pesci wasn't just a great actor. He was a phenomenon. Tough guy, comic genius, dramatic chameleon. Whatever Hollywood threw at him, he transformed it. But then, just as he seemed unstoppable, Joe Pesci began to pull away. When the spotlight fades, Joe Pesci's quiet exit from the stage. By the mid-1990s, Joe Pesci had become a fixture in American cinema. A master of reinvention, he effortlessly bounced between unhinged mobsters, comic foils, and tender-hearted oddballs. Whether he was shouting his way through a courtroom in My Cousin Vinny or slipping on toy cars in Home Alone, Pesci had range, and audiences loved him for it. In 1992, he added another feather to his cap with The Public Eye, portraying a gritty, noir-style photojournalist based loosely on famed crime photographer Ouija. The film didn't break box office records, but critics hailed Pesci's nuanced performance as one of his finest. Proof that behind the explosive characters was a serious, introspective actor with deep emotional gears. That same year, he hosted Saturday Night Live, and the moment was unforgettable, not for a sketch, but for his pointed monologue. Just a week earlier, singer Sinead O'Connor had ripped up a photo of Pope John Paul II on live television, a moment that sparked global outrage. Pesci addressed the incident head-on, saying, only half-jokingly, that he wanted to give her such a smack. The crowd roared. In classic Pesci style, he didn't flinch from controversy. He leaned into it, unfiltered, authentic, and unapologetically himself. Later that year, Pesci took a smaller role in A Bronx Tale, Robert De Niro's directorial debut, based on Chaz Palminteri's autobiographical one-man play. De Niro and Palminteri personally requested Pesci's involvement, a testament to his clout in Hollywood. Though his role as Carmine was brief, it was essential to the film's arc. As always, Pesci made a lasting impression in minimal screen time. Then came 1995's Casino, reuniting Pesci with his old dream team, Scorsese and De Niro, for what many call the spiritual sequel to Goodfellas. As Nicky Santoro, a character inspired by real-life enforcer Tony Spilotro, Pesci gave another ferocious, career-defining performance. Brutal, magnetic, and completely unhinged, Santoro was vintage Pesci. But behind the scenes, The role took a toll. In a bizarre twist of fate, Pesci broke the same rib during filming that he'd fractured 15 years earlier on the set of Raging Bull. It was as if his body was reminding him that the cost of greatness was steep. And maybe that pain was a metaphor. Because soon after Casino, Pesci's spark began to dim. Sure, he stayed busy. He was offered roles in everything from Christmas comedies — he was nearly cast in Jingle All the Way, a part that eventually went to Sinbad — to experimental dramas. He tackled offbeat projects like Eight Heads in a Duffel Bag and the ill-fated buddy Flick Gone Fishing with Danny Glover. But it was clear, the magic was fading. The offers weren't matching his past, the roles didn't excite him, and Pesci, always more artist than celebrity, refused to coast on mediocrity. So in 1999, he did something few in Hollywood have the guts to do. He walked away. Pesci announced he was stepping back from acting to pursue his first love, music. Yes, music. Before the Oscars, before the mob hits and courtroom zingers, Joe Pesci was a lounge singer, a guitarist, a kid with a voice and a dream. And he wasn't finished with that dream yet. To mark the new chapter, he released Vincent LaGuardia Gambini Sings Just For You, an eccentric, genre-blurring album named after his beloved character from My Cousin Vinny. Part comedy, part Sinatra homage, part bizarre novelty, complete with a rap track, the album was pure Pesci, unexpected, offbeat, and strangely endearing. He wasn't chasing Grammys. He was having fun. For Pesci, music wasn't about fame. It was about expression, joy, freedom, and perhaps most tellingly, it wasn't about Hollywood. A legend reawakens and faces the shadows. By the early 2000s, Joe Pesci had made peace with stepping away from the limelight. The films that came his way just didn't resonate the way they used to. "I love acting," he once said, "but only when it's good material." He had no desire to churn out forgettable roles simply to stay relevant. That kind of self-awareness and refusal to compromise earned him respect in an industry where many cling to the spotlight long after it's dimmed. Still, Pesci didn't vanish entirely. He kept one foot in the business, taking on the occasional role if it meant collaborating with people he trusted. Chief among them, his longtime friend Robert De Niro. The two had built a cinematic legacy together, from the operatic violence of Raging Bull to the raw intensity of Goodfellas and Casino. So when De Niro asked Pesci to appear in his 2006 directorial effort The Good Shepherd, Pesci obliged, stepping back in front of the camera for a small but memorable role. After that, mostly quiet. A few low-key projects like Love Ranch in 2010, a quirky Snickers commercial, and the infamous Gotti biopic that never happened. Pesci had committed to playing a key role in the film, even gaining 30 pounds to embody a Gambino family enforcer. But when producers tried to bump him into a smaller role and slash his salary, Pesci didn't just walk away. He sued them for $3 million. The case was eventually settled, but the film never made it to theaters. Still, Hollywood hadn't forgotten Pesci, and neither had fans. In 2016, Pesci made a rare public appearance at the GQ Men of the Year Awards, joining De Niro on stage. The audience erupted. It was like spotting a unicorn in the wild. But behind the scenes, something much bigger was brewing. Martin Scorsese was preparing The Irishman, an epic mob saga spanning decades, built around three aging icons: De Niro, Al Pacino, and Pesci. There was just one problem. Pesci didn't want to do it. In fact, he turned the role down over 40 times. But Scorsese is nothing if not persistent, and eventually, Pesci said yes. The result was a triumphant return to form. Netflix poured $175 million into the production, an eye-popping budget for a film that wasn't a Marvel blockbuster. But this wasn't about special effects, though it used plenty of de-aging tech. This was a masterclass in storytelling, and Pesci's performance as Russell Bufalino was revelatory. Gone was the explosive firecracker of Goodfellas. In his place was a cool, reserved, cerebral mob boss, a man who said more with a glance than others could with a monologue. It was a radical pivot, and critics took notice. Pesci earned a flurry of nominations, including an Oscar nod for Best Supporting Actor. After decades of playing the loudest guy in the room, he delivered one of the quietest and most haunting performances of his career. It was a reminder that Joe Pesci wasn't just a character actor, he was an artist. But as the spotlight warmed again, Pesci's personal life faced colder, darker revelations. In the early 90s, Pesci had married actress and model Claudia Haro. The marriage was short-lived, lasting from 1988 to 1992, but they had a daughter together. The split was relatively quiet until the headlines hit. In the years following their divorce, Haro would become the subject of one of Hollywood's most disturbing off-screen scandals. She was charged and later convicted in a murder-for-hire plot targeting her second ex-husband, stuntman Garrett Warren. The case stunned even the most jaded crime reporters. Haro was eventually sentenced to 12 years in prison for attempted murder. While Pesci had no involvement in the crime, the proximity to the case dragged his name back into tabloid territory. For a man who had spent years deliberately stepping away from the glare of fame, it was an unwelcome reminder of how deeply personal and public life can intertwine. Joe Pesci. From the spotlight to the sand trap. Joe Pesci's journey through Hollywood has been nothing short of extraordinary, filled with the peaks of Oscar wins, iconic performances, and the valleys of personal controversies, some of which remain part of his storied history. But as much as his career was marked by his explosive, unforgettable roles, think Goodfellas, Casino, and Home Alone, it was his ability to walk away from it all that makes him an enigma. After a career of being the hot-tempered tough guy or the lovable villain, Pesci shocked the world in 1999 when he announced his retirement from acting. While many assumed the move was just another phase in the life of a notoriously private star, it was actually Joe's decision to pivot to something far less expected: music. But this wasn't just about a new hobby. This was a new passion: golf, a quiet escape from Hollywood. While Hollywood had typecast Joe Pesci into roles as fast-talking mobsters, angry small-town gangsters, and wisecracking sidekicks, he wasn't content with the monotony of the same character every time. The intense grind of the industry had started to wear him down, and Pesci found solace and a sense of peace in golf. Pesci's love for the sport isn't a recent discovery. In fact, he picked up the game early in his career and used it as an escape. Unlike many stars who dabble in golf as a casual hobby, Joe embraced the sport seriously. As the demands of the movie business increased and his roles began to feel repetitive, golf became his sanctuary, both a physical and mental retreat from the demands of fame. What's more remarkable is that despite his Hollywood persona as the angry, fiery, and unpredictable figure, Joe found golf to be a calm outlet where he could detach from his screen image. He even played with other A-listers, including Jack Nicholson and Dennis Hopper, as well as pro golfer John Daly. According to reports, Pesci's golf handicap is an impressive 15.9, showing he's not just playing for fun, but as a true enthusiast of the game. Joe once joked that making bad movies wasn't the worst thing, considering that at least he wouldn't have to deal with the physical tolls of his intense fight scenes and stunts. It's no surprise that his role in the iconic Raging Bull, where he famously broke a rib, was just one of many injuries he'd endured during the intense action sequences in some of his most famous films. He made light of the pain in his typically sardonic way, proving that beneath the hard exterior was a man capable of self-awareness and wit. Hollywood, fame, and the desire for privacy. For Joe Pesci, fame was something to be managed, not embraced. His journey to stardom was never one of blatant self-promotion or being in the spotlight for the sake of it. His acting career was rooted in the craft, but more importantly, his decisions regarding which projects to pursue were always based on a sense of artistic integrity. After Raging Bull and his work in Goodfellas, Pesci began to turn down a large number of roles. They weren't good enough, at least not for him. Pesci's level of self-awareness and his refusal to compromise on quality is perhaps one of the most admirable aspects of his career. He once said, "I love being in movies, but only if they're good. I don't want to do just anything because I know that could hurt my reputation." It's rare for an actor at the peak of their fame to walk away from opportunities, but that was precisely what Pesci did. After starring in some of the greatest films of the 1980s and 90s, his disillusionment with Hollywood roles led him to seek a quieter existence. Instead of starring in just any film, Pesci began to focus on pursuits outside of acting. He took time for himself, leaning into his other interests, namely music. His album, Vincent LaGuardia Gambini Sings Just For You, released in 1998, was a surprise to many who didn't realize Joe could sing. The album, which included a rap song, showcased the versatility and surprising artistic depth of a man who had spent decades in front of the camera. The project was a playful, light-hearted departure from the intensity of his on-screen persona, but it also revealed a man willing to explore new avenues of expression. It's not just about acting for him. It's about creating, in whatever form that may take. A career of surprising roles and a quiet return. Joe Pesci didn't just limit himself to stereotypical roles throughout his career. Yes, he became the quintessential mobster in Goodfellas and Casino, but he also showed his versatility in family-friendly roles like Home Alone, where his portrayal of the bumbling burglar Harry was beloved by audiences around the world. His comedic timing in My Cousin Vinny as the sharp-tongued lawyer was equally masterful, offering audiences yet another layer of his acting prowess. But after taking a step back from acting in 1999, Joe's film appearances became rare. He wasn't hungry for fame, nor was he looking to claim every role that came his way. However, Joe did make a few notable returns to the screen. He reunited with longtime friend Robert De Niro for The Good Shepherd in 2006, and his small but pivotal role in The Irishman, 2019, marked a return to the Hollywood fold that was both celebrated and eagerly anticipated. Directed by Martin Scorsese and featuring an all-star cast, The Irishman showed a different side of Pesci, less the fiery, short-tempered mobster, and more a measured, cool-headed figure who controlled the room through silence and subtlety. This role earned him rave reviews, and once again, Pesci proved he had the acting chops to adapt to any character. A mysterious personal life. Behind the scenes, Joe Pesci's personal life has been equally captivating. His marriage to model and actress Claudia Harrow was marked by a bittersweet divorce in 1992, after which she became involved in a highly publicized legal case. In a shocking twist, Harrow was implicated in an attempted murder case involving her ex-husband, Garrett Warren, a Hollywood stuntman. Though Pesci was never accused of any involvement, his presence at his ex-wife's trial raised eyebrows and made headlines. It's a reminder that the world of celebrities, for all its glamour, can sometimes be filled with dark twists. Retirement and reflection. Joe Pesci's retreat from Hollywood isn't just about golfing and music, it's about reflection. He's carved a life for himself that, despite occasional professional returns, remains firmly rooted in personal peace. After a lifetime of being in the public eye, he's chosen a quieter, more private existence, spending time with family and friends, keeping a low profile, and occasionally appearing in small, meaningful roles that pique his interest. His return to acting isn't for the fame. It's for the love of the craft, for a role that challenges him or resonates with him on a personal level. Ultimately, Joe Pesci is a man who lived life on his own terms. He never cared much for the limelight, and certainly didn't let it define him. From his sharp-tongued roles in crime films to his unpredictable, charming, and sometimes gritty personal life, Pesci's legacy will always be one of complexity and authenticity. He didn't need the fame. He just needed to be true to himself, whether on the golf course, in the recording studio, or on a movie set. And for those who followed his career, That's what made Joe Pesci one of the most intriguing and enduring figures in Hollywood.